extraordinary swings in pricing and hence sentiment, one would think that what a rational person would do is buy stuff when it was cheap, buy stuff on sale, and sell stuff when it's expensive. But that's not what human beings do. It's ironic that when somebody is asking me for advice, as an example, and they have a stock that's, let's say it's doubled, let's say it's a little stock, it's gone from $1 to $2, and nothing has changed internally with the company. Nothing is better or worse. It's just that it's gotten broader attention. A stock that's doubled in price with no change in fundamentals is arithmetically half as attractive, but we like it twice as much. And trying to talk somebody into selling a position that's doubled in price with no change in underlying fundamentals is very difficult. Similarly, if a stock is selling for $1 and it falls to 50 cents with no change in underlying fundamentals, the stock is arithmetically twice as attractive. But trying to talk an investor who has suffered a 50% loss into doubling his or her position in a stock that's fallen with no change in the underlying fact is extremely difficult. What it says is that we are rational human beings often when we go to a shopping mall and we look for a sign that says sale. We are irrational human beings when it comes to financial assets. And if you get nothing else out of the Barron's chart, look at the magnitude of the gains that you can enjoy when you buy goods on sale, and look at the magnitude of the losses that you avoid when the sector returns to favor and you harvest some of those gains.
Yeah, what you're saying, we see it all the time. Gold and silver go down when it's at a low price. Nobody seems to want to buy it, and then it starts going up, and then people start buying it at the top. And that's something it's hard to understand the psychology of that when it happens. So I appreciate you kind of explaining that. You said that while history might not repeat, it will almost certainly rhyme. And from your observation of long-term valuation cycles, would you say that precious metals assets have to rise from their current levels?
Have to rise? No. No. But likely to rise? Yes. Gold in particular has historically been a store of value and a medium of exchange. And I would suggest to you that the most important price determinant with regards to gold in the last 30 years has been, as I said, faith or lack of faith in the purchasing power of the US dollar as expressed by the US 10-year Treasury. The US 10-year Treasury has been in a bull market since 1981. So we're talking about an asset class that's been in a bull market for more than 35 years. The yield is, of course, inverse to the price, so the yield has fallen from 15.6 to 2, which is a different way of saying that the nominal price has risen over that period of time manyfold. Now, I would argue with you that bull market after 35 years is either over or very close to over. And if you buy the reciprocity argument, which says that gold trades inversely to the US 10-year Treasury, that would suggest that the bull market in gold is either begun or very, very, very close to beginning. And the reason, again, goes to arithmetic. The truth is that the US 10-year Treasury absolutely, positively, without fail, guarantees you a loss. Not a particularly attractive outcome for a saver like me.
Okay. Yeah, since we're on that topic, central banks around the world, they've been cutting rates in 2019, and markets are also expecting the ECB to go further into negative rates, as we touched on with Germany. Alan Greenspan recently came out and he made a comment that there is nothing stopping the U.S. from going into negative rates. What do you make of negative rates, which has turned the simple concept of borrowing and lending on its head?
Well, right now there's a disconnect between people's perceptions and arithmetic. equity markets, as an example, have enjoyed what was first the Greenspan put and then the central bank put, knowing that if equity markets got in trouble, they'd cut rates to the point where the cost of capital for traders was very low and where the dividend yields relative to deposit yields were relatively high. So there's demand for lower rates. Lower rates, true, are also an income transfer or a benefit transfer.
Now, what's most ironic about this whole thing is that all the things that are being discussed here is based on accounting. It's based on accounting because we have to understand that the way these things are actually being viewed, the way these things are actually being utilized, they fall up into that scope. And when they fall up into that, an example, like I'm gonna give you a real good example. Let me give you a real good example here, because I know a lot of you guys are like, wow, how do we make this work? How do we make this work? Well, you're gonna make this work in the capacity of all the various different things that are dealing with the actual structure. You have to take in mind that all of the accounting that's being used to evaluate transactions have to go into a certain cycle, and because they have to go into a certain cycle, you have to take all of that in consideration. Now, I'm gonna share some information with you that's gonna kind of help you out and help you make heads or tails of a lot of this stuff. So let's see if I can bring up my document here so we can come down through there. Now, matter of fact, I'm gonna go into what I already got up, so that way, let's say if you listen long enough, you definitely will learn something. So let's talk about just the whole the actual dollar bill, which is the only banknote in existence or actually in circulation. All right, I was listening to a talk show radio the other night. David Clarence and Gene Keaton. David is a biblical law scholar, really sharp, very well versed in both. And at some point in the recording, he was talking to someone that called in and said, I don't know, everyone's running out and buying up all this silver. All they need to do is start converting their larger bills to ones. He starts talking about this at about 2:35 on a broadcast that was done on 11/22/10. He goes on to explain that the scripture says that he who has the most will obtain the least, and he who has the least will obtain the most. So when they bring in the new money, the man standing at the Federal Reserve window to trade in his worthless currency that holds fives, ones, 20s, 50s, $100 bills will walk away from that window with the least. The man who has a handful of $1 bills will leave that window with the most. And those $1 bills will be worth more than the 5, 10, 20, 5, 10s, 20s, 50s, and $100 bills. Why is this? Because the dollar, whether it be a silver dollar or $1 bill, is the only lawful currency in the United States. The Constitution tells the Congress that they have the authority to regulate the weight and measures, the value. They haven't changed the $1 bill in forever, but they keep changing the other denominations. You ever notice that? A $100 bill is actually 1/100th of a dollar, and a $10 bill is 1/10th of a dollar. It is an illusion. The $1 is different than the $5, the $10, the $20, the $50, or $100. If you look at the seal in the front of the dollar bill, you'll notice that it says around the seal Federal Reserve Bank or of, and then it'll insert your city and state there. It is because it is a banknote. Now look at a $20 bill. You'll notice it only says United States Federal Reserve System because it's not a banknote. Two totally different things. The $1 bill is worth something, and the other United States Federal Reserve System non-banknotes are not. The Federal Reserve debt is based on how many dollars are in circulation. They must have so many dollars in circulation to issue 5, 10, 20, 50s, and $100. There is no bill anywhere worth more money than the $1 bill. So So don't worry about buying silver or gold if you can't afford it. Just start converting your larger bills to $1 bills. Everything we hear about the currency is the US dollar. You never hear about the US $20 or the US $100. That's because everything is based around the $1 bill. It's the only true currency. Just to prove to you how much purchasing power a $1 has. As a $1 bill, you can go into any bank and anywhere, and if they have a silver dollar in their drawer at the window, you can exchange your $1 bill for a silver eagle dollar. I've done this before using 2 $1 bills. I brought $60 worth of silver for 2 $1 banknote contracts. A banknote resembles a common promissory note. And I hope you follow. I'll be picking up what I'm picking up. Let's back up. What does that tell you? That tells you that the silver dollar is exactly 1 ounce of 0.999 per silver and currently trading at about 16 to 18 per ounce. That means your $1 bill is worth 16 to 18 or whatever price the silver jumps up to. I bought 2 American Eagles and just exchanged them for 2 $1 bills. Now, don't get excited and think you're going to call all the banks up around tomorrow and buy up a bunch of 1 ounce silver coins for $1 and get rich, because there are a lot of people out there who know what's going on and have close relations with their banks when they get silver dollars in the banks, and the banks call them. Just start asking when you go to the banks if they have any silver dollars in the drawers, and if they do, watch what happens when you ask to trade your $1 for the silver dollar. They'll hand it right over to you, no questions asked. The reason why I'm reading this because I'm finna give you something to definitely grow on. This is what I mean about the connotative concept of money, because most individuals don't understand that this goes on every day. That I had up earlier. Just bear with me, because if you listen long enough, you definitely will learn something. Definitely learn something. Let's actually go here. Got a document that I'm going to actually I'm gonna jump into right here. The new record, COMEX paper leverage ratios. It's a gold paper. The COMEX is facing a gold crisis. Sure, you can't eat a bar of gold. It just sits in store like a pet rock that's been cast aside by its bored owner. But try selling the Indians or Chinese a paper gold bar and see how far you get. You might end up with a knife in your forehead. The stench has been growing stronger by the day. Many of us have been right for years about the extreme imbalance between the paper futures open interest versus the underlying amount of gold bearing reported as available for delivery. The latest disclosure from the CME, which is COMEX Exchange, is that the ratio of paper gold versus the amount deliverable ounces has spiked to over 200 to 1. As of last Friday, JP Morgan had 89.4 kilograms, 89,000.4 ounces withdrawn from the custom eligible account in its vault, and it moved 122,000 ounces of gold from its deliverable/registered accounts into its customer's account. With the true nature of that what was the true nature of those transactions were, i.e., who the counterparts were and did in fact any real gold actually leave JP Morgan's gold vault, is anyone's guess due to the intentional opacity of the disclosure of COMEX. But the bottom line is that as of last Friday, the COMEX vaults collectively now show 202 ounces of gold in the registered/deliverable accounts at Commerce Vault's custodian. As of today's trading, the preliminary gold futures open interest rose to 419,000 in contracts, representing a 41.9 million ounces of paper gold. This would preliminarily put the ratio of paper gold to deliverable physical gold at an astonishing 207 to 1. The amount of deliverable gold on the comics is the lowest that I've